So what's involved in remapping a Triumph Rocket 3 which has got a TTS supercharger kit? We're asking a lot of the standard ECU. We use tune ECU to get into the ECU to get rid of its speed limiters, throttle angle limiters. So yeah, we can give it full power whether it's supercharged or not. The factory limit it to somewhere between 60 and 70% depending whether it's a TFC or just a standard R or GT. So we use tune ECU. As you can see, it's a long old process when we're remapping. So we started reflashing to the ECU. We're only at 12% at the moment and there's still 20 minutes to go. So it's a very slow process working with tune ECU. It's not live mapping, it's just the opposite, it's very, very slow mapping. So we're continually developing and trying to give our customers the best. So Power Commander, I've come out with a Power Commander 6 and we decided that we would use that today. What I've found is in early days when there wasn't anything for the Rocket 3, we reworked a Triumph 675 Power Commander 5 and configured it to work on the Rocket 3. And for some reason, we could get more adjustment out of a Power Commander than we can out of tune ECU. So it looks to me like tune ECU are very cautious with the maximum setting they give you regarding duty cycle. So I think they're setting it somewhere around 80%, where quite often we're right on the edge for getting the best power. So we need to we need to get a little bit more duty cycle or a little bit more fuel pressure, something to give us enough to get the power safely out of the motorcycle. So the Power Commander 6 has given us a little bit more adjustment. And what we found with our customer's bike here is that running one stock injector and one 550cc injector, we're getting a really good idle, which I couldn't get on my bike with the two large injectors because I couldn't get the duty cycle low enough. The injectors didn't like it, so we was always on the rich side. Now, by running one standard injector and one 550, we've got less fuel going in than if it was two 550s. So we're able to calibrate the bottom end to get a decent idle and decent throttle response all the way through the lower RPM ranges and lower throttle angles. So it's working for us really well. We've only started on it this afternoon and the results are coming thick and fast, except for when we're downloading with the ECU, tune ECU. So in addition to having the Power Commander 6 and the tune ECU software, we've also got the issue where the stock map sensor doesn't like anything over 10 pound of boost. So this puts the engine management light on. You think you're clever, so you change the map sensor and you recalibrate the map sensor so that it runs okay. But the ECU says, there's a correlation between atmospheric air pressure and manifold pressure, and it's not what we expect. So it puts the engine management light on. So there's no benefit in putting another expensive item on the bike. So we've stayed with the stock map sensor, and as we're mapping, unlike a turbo, we know that the amount of air going into the engine is always relevant to engine RPM and throttle angle. So there's no piece of elastic like with a turbo where you might be loading up more one time than another, so you need more fuel because the turbo's spinning faster. There's none of that to mess around with, so keeping the stock map sensor is not a big deal. We're not mapping against manifold pressure, we're mapping against throttle angle. So back to the map sensor. To stop the engine management light coming on, we have another little box, and this little box, that is a voltage clamp. So we don't let the ECU see more than 4.6 volts, so it doesn't flash the engine management light because it is not going over its voltage and flagging up that there's a high voltage fault. So that gets rid of that problem. So now we've got tune ECU, Power Commander 6, and the voltage clamp. Between all of them, we're getting to a point where we've got a really good setup, and at the moment we're running 330 horsepower and 270 foot-pound of torque, and I haven't finished yet. I'll probably detune it a little bit, maybe reduce the revs from the 7,000 to 6.5, because you don't need to rev its nuts off to go fast, and put some extra reliability in and keep the injectors away from maxing out. But whatever, you're going to be very pleased with that sort of horsepower and torque. This is with the cams, our cams, and the forged pistons. Remember that we'll only give you 40% throttle if you're not going for the cams and the pistons. 40% throttle will give you about 240 horsepower. So that might be enough for most, and you haven't got to have an engine build, and you haven't got the expensive pistons and cams and gaskets. So the choice is yours. We try to be as flexible as we can and help everybody. Obviously, if you've got poor fuel, poor quality, low octane fuel, then you're not going to get the same power as running on our 98 octane super unleaded. If you're 98 octane in the States, is equivalent to 93. So if you can't get 93, you've got to have 91 or 89. Then at the top end, we're going to have to pull more timing out to stop it detting and destroying the engine. But bottom end, it will still pull like a train. Top end, you'll still probably have 270 horsepower. So it's turning out to be a really nice kit. It's pity it's not making me any money, but I just love it, and it's quite a tool. And I'm sure you guys who've got them are going to have lots of fun, and we'll probably make our own club just for Rocket 300, say. Okay, so that was the last run today, and we've got manifold pressure, AFR, still a lot of work to do on the AFR, and we're running a little bit lean at the top end, running well rich low down here, look at that, 10 to 1. And then the horsepower, obviously the bike doesn't care what air fuel ratio it's running because it's running really strong. So it's got 341 horsepower, 274 foot-pound of torque. So let's go back to a single graph. There we go, look at that. She's a monster. So right up here, why is it not doing anything? About 341 at the rev limit, and peak torques all the way along there. That peak torque is constant for the last 550 to 600 and 5,500 to 6,500 RPM. Torque is somewhere on the order of 270 foot-pound of torque. Look at that. That's going to be fun to ride. So, at 2,500 revs, she's making 160 foot-pound of torque. Wow. Wow, that's big. Look at that.